All right. So the next question is, as far as, I guess, the ascended masters, archangels, like Jesus, Buddha, um, what roles do they play in leading to God, to understanding, assisting? Um,
It's a very broad question. So I'm going to ask you to kind of narrow it down a little bit. Give me like a simpler first question, then we can take it from there.
well, from the site that I was on, what it was getting to is that Jesus is the way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I don't disagree. It's not Jesus. It's the Christ
yes,
is the way. Yeah, absolutely. But it's not Christian. But yes,
yes.
So go ahead.
But so, and then there's also other religions, and then there's also, as we're on this path, we're not only calling on Jesus, Yeshua, for assistance with things,
Mm-hmm.
other, like the archangels have their place.
Absolutely.
The ascended masters all have their place, and we call on them, and they're all a part of that.
Yes.
So, like, what roles do?
Now you're struggling to get a question out.
How, like, if it's all God,
Yes.
why are they there?
Okay, there's a question. Okay, very good. Why are they there? If it's all God, why are they there? Okay, it is a question. I don't know how to answer it. So, and if we're speaking of the ascended masters, and we'll lump the archangels in there with them because they work together. From that space, why are they there? They're there to facilitate in the awakening of humanity, of course, of course, just like I am, right? But they aren't in form. So that's the point of them being there. Now, each archangel or ascended master has a very particular role they play, right? And there's an awful lot of information out there on that I don't feel like I need to go into. It's kind of not my forte, but I will say that, when it comes to like the seven rays, that there is an ascended master and an archangel over each ray, and they're very specific in the energetic that they bring and the work that they're here to do with humanity. So yes, when you say we call on them, we call on them very specifically based on the level of work that we're requesting assistance with. So yes, that's very accurate. That comes because you have an understanding of the spheres of light and how those spheres function, and then function with the rays of light to facilitate the awakening of humanity. And also to show you how evolution occurs, right? So how we move from one octave of evolution up into the next octave collectively as the collective ascends, when it's time for each ascension process to happen. So that's the why behind that. I think part of it is that from the space of human consciousness, it's two people, people like people. All right. So it's easier for people to identify with someone or something that they consider to be a person. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you say to someone, when you say God, what do you think? And probably 90% of the population would say God's a man. All right. God's a he. Why? Well, because we all grew up hearing God was a he, and like no one questioned it. It was just the way it was. Now you're going to have a certain group who would say, no, God's a female, Mother Gaia or Mother Goddess or whatever you want to say. Okay. And then you'd have a very, very, very small group of people who would say God is light. God is energy. And you're like, okay. Like, well, what does that mean? Like people aren't comfortable with that because, well, I can't, how do I identify with that? And how do I associate with it when I'm so disconnected from some amorphous light being versus someone who I can say, oh, you look like a person, right? And so from that space, I think that's partially why people like to work with the ascended masters.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the fact that they seem to have personalities. If you want to say that, I mean, Saint Germain certainly presents very differently than Almoya, absolutely. And because of it's not their personality, it's their construct of light and their rays of light, the way they've all come together. So they present a little differently. And also the fact that as ascended masters, they've actually been here in form and they've mastered this reality and have moved on and don't need to be here in form anymore. So as seekers, people are comfortable with that too. Oh, that's a good one to follow because they've done it and I'm trying to do the same thing. And so I feel good about that. So does that answer it? Like the why?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.